Hello again, everybody, and welcome to episode 36 of going through a 71 Topps Vending Box. And today, as our bonus, we are going to go through the all-time best third baseman. We played, and I've laid out some of the best of the rest. It didn't make my top 16 list, but were some really good players. You got a feeling few of these, Nolan Arenado, Manny Machado, and Jose Ramirez, we don't have a card of, are going to eventually be on that list. We also set out our top second baseman that I ranked of all time. I've done that video previously, and these are my top 10 in order. And my top 10 shortstops of all time. And that is the order that we went through on the shortstops. There was a 1976 Topps set where the Sporting News put out their all-time best of all time, and at that time, the second baseman they had chosen was the same guy I picked number one. The shortstop was the same guy I picked number one. But the third baseman, as you're going to find out, isn't even in my top 15 list. So part of that, a lot of the best third basemen have been more recent players, but I also think they missed the boat, and they did not pick the best third baseman of all time at that time. So before we go through our third baseman, we're back to our 71 vending. Not much left at all. Only probably a few more episodes of doing this, and then I'm going to keep going. We will do some other stuff, kind of like what I've been doing after going through these cards in the 71 vending. But let's first, before we go to the all-time best third baseman, see who we get in the 71 vending. 2 times ago, we had just a great Packsworth with a really nice, both Rod Carew and Willie Stargell. There's also a Ron Santo in there, who you are going to see later in the top third baseman of all time. So far, we got a Ed Herman, Julian Javier, a Bobby Wine, and Oriole reliever Marcelino Lopez. And look at that, another Ed Herman. I think this is the first time I've ever gotten. It's like getting a pack where you get two of the same cards, which I do remember happening back in my day of getting packs. But we got 2 Ed Hermans there. Ed Stroud looks like a nice card. We got a Gary Peters. Looks like a well-centered card. Bob Humphreys. And here's a nice player in Mickey Lolich. A little off center there. And well, that's only 9, so we got to get one more. One more out of the box to make a pack's worth. Any card here, let's see what we get. And it's Hall of Fame manager, or Hall of Fame player, but as a manager, Red Schoendienst. So that is our Packsworth. If we were back at the grocery store in 71 buying a pack of Series 2 cards, that is who we get. Okay, with that, we are going to go on to our top all-time third baseman. I'm going to bring my stack of cards over here. Let's put these over a little bit and go through them. So from the 16 down to 11, I'm just going to show cards, not talk a whole lot. But we got Pie Traynor, who was rated as their all-time top guy in that 76. He's my 16. Here's my number 15. Greg Nettles. Here's my number 14. Ken Boyer. My number 13. Just got into the Hall of Fame. Scott Rowland, who I think deserved getting into the Hall of Fame. Number 12, Jimmy Collins, the great defensive third baseman. And my number 11, who definitely would be higher if he would have played more defense, but he was a DH most of his career, and he's from my home state, Paul Molitor. He's actually would be in the top 10 in WAR, but his defense hurt him. So here we go, top 10. Number 10 is, on my list, Ray Dandridge. And this is a 45-46 Carmelo DePortova card. I think it's a pretty cool card. It's actually a recent pickup of mine. I had that episode where I went through Negro League players and their Hall of Fame cards, or just their cards of players in the Hall of Fame. And at the time, I only had 2 playing day cards. The rest were later cards. Now I have 3 because I recently picked up this Ray Dandridge, which is pretty cool. Dandridge makes a list of my top 10 because he was a great fielder as well. He was a bow-legged guy. His main years were with the Newark Eagles. He then played a bunch of years in the Mexican League. He was kind of a pre- and post-war guy. He played from 33 to 55. He was actually offered a contract in 47 to play with the Indians by Bill Veeck, but at that time really liked playing in the Mexican League where he was, so he stayed there. Later, I think he wanted to play in the majors, but by that time he was getting a little bit long in the tooth, so he didn't get another opportunity. My number 9 guy is a guy who had a 70.5 career WAR in just 15 seasons. This is rookie card, 1961, Ron Santo. When you think of kind of the great Cubbies of that era in the 60s and stuff, you think of Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, Fergie Jenkins. You kind of overlook that Ron Santo was such a great player as well. Too bad their team never made the playoffs, so Santo never got to play in the playoffs. But he did finish with 5 career Gold Gloves, 342 homers, 2,200 hits, 9-time All-Star, and that's all while dealing with type 1 diabetes, something he had since he was a kid. In those days, you think, the insulins and stuff were not as easy to use or, in different forms like they are now. So a lot tougher. He actually ended up losing both his legs later in life as a broadcaster with the Cubs. But was just a great defender. He actually had a 67 season where he was the best in WAR in all of baseball. He finished 4th in MVP that year. He had a 9.8 WAR, and he also had a couple years right around 9 where he's 8-9 twice. From 63 to 69, he was probably one of the best players around. Got MVP votes all of those seasons. And then we're going to go to number 8, and that is a newer player, Chipper Jones. Long-time Atlanta Brave. He finished with 85 career WAR. He is the only switch hitter to have a 300 career average and hit over 400 home runs. His defense was okay, but just kind of so-so, but offensively, just a great player. Finished his career with over 400 on-base percentage. He had 468 career homers, and he, along with only Frankie Frisch were the only switch hitters to ever hit over 300 from each side. Played 93 postseason games, as those Braves were seemingly always in the playoffs. At age 36, he still hit 364. Our next guy, Home Run Baker. Frank Baker, his real name. So this is number 7. He finished with a 63 career WAR, and he really only played 10 full seasons. This is his 1915 Cracker Jack card, which I think is a pretty cool card. Got a little tape staining there from whoever had it back in the day. But he played starting in 1908. He got his nickname basically Home Run Baker because in the 1911 World Series he hit home runs off 2 Hall of Fame pitchers from the Giants, Rube Marquardt and Christy Mathewson. And that was the first year he led the league in home runs, 1911, with a grand total of 11. So it definitely was the dead ball era. He led the league in homers the next year as well, 1912, with a total of 10, and led the league again the next year, 1913, with 12 homers. So don't seem like much for totals, but compared to the rest of the league, that was a lot of home runs. And then you throw on top of that he was such a good defensive player as well. In fact, Walter Johnson said he is the most dangerous hitter I ever faced. He played in 6 World Series, won the first 3 out of those 10 seasons. And I think he would have been a better pick than Pie Traynor for the all-time best third baseman that the Sporting News did back there. And there's probably one that's coming up that would have even been a better pick. My number 6 of all time is Adrian Beltre. Beltre made the majors at age 19 and then ended at age 40 or 41. So a long career. His best years actually were probably in his 30s with the Rangers. Had a lot of fun. Is all, you always saw a lot of videos you can watch on YouTube with him and Elvis Andrus kind of teasing each other and doing kind of fun things with each other. He was second in MVP back with the Dodgers when he had that breakout season of 48 homers in 2004. But ended his career with 3,166 career hits, 477 homers, 5 Gold Gloves. He was the first Dominican player ever with over 3,000 hits. All right, going on. Our next player on the list, number 5 all-time third baseman for me, is Brooks Robinson. The highest defensive WAR of any third baseman ever. You go watch some of his, what's fun, actually, watch some of those 1970 World Series. Just watch the games, and you're going to see Brooks Robinson make highlight play after highlight play. He was MVP of that World Series when he also hit 429 in that World Series, but he probably could have hit 160 and would have been MVP just with all those defensive plays that he made. He also had an MVP season, 1964. He was also third in 65 and second in 66, so quite a little splurge there of great years. He won 16 straight Gold Gloves, and on top of that, offensively was okay too, with 2,848 hits, 268 homers. Of some of the people who said he was the best third baseman they ever saw, Casey Stengel, Home Run Baker said that, and Pie Traynor said that. So number 5, Brooks Robinson. Number 4, one of the great players when I was a kid, George Brett. Never forget his 1980 season. He was MVP that year. He had more RBIs than games played and hit 390. Was really chasing that 400 mark. The year before that, he had 42 doubles, 20 triples, and 23 homers, so over 20 in all those categories. Not too many players have ever done that. Career-wise, 305 hitter, 3,100 hits, 317 homers, and over 200 stolen bases. And the only people who can say they've done that, over 300 average, 3,000 hits, over 300 homers, and over 200 stolen bases, he, Hank Aaron, and Willie Mays. And that is it. Number 3 all-time, and probably the only differentiator that made him above George Brett, was he was a better defensive player, is Wade Boggs. Seen here on his 83 Topps rookie card. So these were all rookie cards, actually, that Brett and that 57 Brooks Robinson. Really like that Brooksy. He looks so young. But Wade Boggs, a 415 lifetime on-base percentage guy. He is the 23rd player in history to get over 3,000 hits. He was a 7th-round draft pick, but just kind of worked so hard on his own. Won 5 batting titles, and the worst average in those 5 batting titles was 357, and that was 1986. His highest MVP finish was just 4th, and that year he had 240 hits and a 450 on-base percentage. But really good player there, Wade Boggs. Number 2, and the guy that I think should, instead of this guy, Pie Traynor, been the guy on this card, should have been Eddie Matthews. But I don't think they looked much at post-war guys. The only post-war guy on that list was Ted Williams at that time. I think Hank Aaron and Willie Mays would have made a good case as well for being on there. But Eddie Matthews, this is his rookie card, 1952 Topps. And that's a pretty cool card, I think. And he makes my list as a 96 WAR player. At age 23, he had already had 3 seasons of 40 or more homers. Ended his career with 512 homers, which at that time was 5th on the all-time list. And the only guys ahead of him, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, who also retired the same year, 1968, Jimmy Fox, and Ted Williams. So twice he was second in MVP. He's a 10-time All-Star. He was a great defender. The first guy ever on the cover of Sports Illustrated, 1954. And he was the only Brave to play in Boston, Milwaukee, and Atlanta for his home field. Has that long-time connection with Hank Aaron. Came up just a little before Aaron, but as teammates, Aaron and Matthews, broke Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig's record for most home runs by a teammate. Over 800, both these guys contributed over 400 of those. And he also happened to be Hank Aaron's manager when Hank Aaron hit number 715. All right, and on to number 1. And we're going to show that card because that's his 75 mini. It kind of looks more like the Mike Schmidt you remember. He's the only third baseman over 100 WAR. And here's his rookie card. I don't necessarily like to use that as his representative because he's not the only guy on the card, but that's his 73 Topps. He's also with one of the other guys that made my list, Ron Say, of not on my top 15, but he made, there he is, for just top third baseman of all time. But that isn't Say's rookie. Say was on a 62 card or 72 card as well. So Mike Schmidt, and one of my early card memories was obtaining his 74 card. And how I remember that was trading with a friend. I saw that buddy of mine, John, had gotten a Mike Schmidt, and we were looking at the back of his card, and it's like, oh man, this guy's a scrub. He doesn't even hit 200. You can see on this card he was a 197 career hitter, 196 that year. But I remember that, so this was during the season of 74, that the guy was on a tear and he's hitting a bunch of home runs, and I think led the league at home runs at the time. But I didn't tell John that at the time. We just were looking at his 190 something average, and I made a trade, probably another common, and picked up his 74 Mike Schmidt. But Schmidt, he was an 8-time home run leader. He's the all-time third base home run leader with 548. He's a 3-time MVP, 10-time Gold Glove winner. Also had 18 defensive WAR, which is one of the highest numbers. One year, in 1975, he was almost a 30-30 guy when he hit 38 homers, which led the league, but also stole 29 bases. And he had 174 career steals, so he was pretty fast as well. And as a bonus, Baseball Reference ranked his mustache as 6th best of all time. And I don't think here he had that best mustache yet, but he grew that as he got a little bit older. So anyway, that's the end of my video for today. Hope you liked all my all-time third basemen. In the comments, please put what you think. Where did I get this right? Where did I get this wrong? Who do you think should be in there? Any of these guys? But thanks again, and we will see you again, hopefully next week.